Let's look at the cosine rule. So the cosine rule we use when we don't have right angled triangles and when we can't use the sine rule. So the cosine rule is the last resort, if you like. But as we do some examples, we will look at some of the common patterns that help to identify it as the cosine rule. But as I say, basically use the cosine rule when you can't use any of the other rules, because it's a slightly more long-winded one. So the formula that you will get looks like this. A squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. Okay, so again, remembering little letters relate to sides, capitals to angles, and they are linked. So little a is opposite angle big A, and so on. Now, this works nicely if you want to find the length of a side. If you want to find an angle, then you need to learn to be able to turn this formula around and make cos A the subject. If you do that, it'll end up looking like this. Okay, so it's a nice little algebra challenge for you to practice. So let's do some examples. So here's our first one. So here's a typical pattern for a cosine rule. We've got two sides with the angle in between. But we can't use the sine rule, because to use the sine rule, we'd need to know the angles that are opposite these two sides, and we don't know them. So that's why it's the cosine rule. So they've asked us to find the length of this side here, BC. Okay, so I'm going to call that A, just to make it fit in with our formula nicely. So again, it is useful to write out the formula, copy it across from the formula sheet. You don't have to remember it. So here it is. Okay, so a squared is the same as b squared. It doesn't matter which one you call b or c here. So 23 squared plus the other one, which is 20 squared, minus 2 times 23 times 20 times the cosine of the angle A here, which is 55. Now you can type all of that just into your calculator, but can be prone to mistakes. So what I would do is work out this little section here first on its own. So we do 23 squared plus 20 squared, and that gives us 929. And then I'm going to work out this section here. So we've got 2 times 23 times 20, which is 920. So I've got 920 cos of 55. Now I'm going to put the whole lot of that into the calculator. So we're going to do 929 minus 920 cos 55. Now you don't have to put times in between those. It works on the calculator without. So we press our equals button, and that gives us 401.3 ... Okay, but we're not finished, because of course that has only given us a squared, and we want a. So now we have to square root the answer that we've got. So we square root answer equals, and so a is 20 centimeters to the nearest whole one, 20.03 if we're going to be a bit more accurate to 2 decimal places. Let's look at a couple more examples. So here again we can see a similar setup. We've got an angle between two sides there. Now we're going to ignore the first part, okay, because we're not dealing with areas of the triangle. So it's asking us to find the length of this here. So again, I'm going to call it A, because then that fits in. So remember, it's a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos of a. Okay, So a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 times b times c times the cosine of the angle A, which here is 79 degrees. So this is one I probably don't need the calculator for to do the first bit. 8 squared is 64, 10 squared is 100. Put them together, we get 164. And then that's going to be minus, again, 2 8s are 16, times 10 is 160, cos of 79 degrees. So as I say, I think it's safer to get to this stage rather than trying to put all of that into the calculator, because if you don't use your brackets carefully and don't know what you're doing, you can end up with a wrong answer. So 164 minus 160 cos 79 equals 133.47, so on. But remember, that's a squared and we want a, so we now need to square root that answer. So square root answer equals, and to 1 decimal place that would be 12, to 2 decimal places that would be 11.55. Okay. Oops. So we've done a couple now where we've had to find the side, so we want to look at ones where we have to find the angle now. So here they're asking us to find the angle XZY, which means this is the angle we're interested in. So as I said, you need to be able to rearrange this formula to get the angle on its own. So we've got this formula that the cos of our angle, which I'm going to call A here, equals b squared plus c squared minus a squared all over 2bc. So the cos of A is going to be, it doesn't matter which you call B and C, but the little a one is important. That one has to be A. So we've got 20 squared plus 22 squared minus 17 squared, and all of that is divided by 2 times 20 times 22. Now with this you can just put that straight in if you use your fraction button here. So on the top we've got 20 squared plus 22 squared minus 17 squared, and then we go down to fill in our bottom. So we've got 2 times 20 times 22. So we press equals. That's given us a fraction. If it does that, then you'll just have to press the button to change it to a decimal. So we've got 0.676 going on. In fact, it's a recurring answer here. Now we don't actually want the cos of the angle, we want the angle itself. So that cos A equals 0.676 and so on. So to get A, we need to do the -1 version. So if we do that, so we do shift and cos to get the -1 version, press answer to pop that in, equals, and this tells us that the angle would be 47 degrees to the nearest whole one. Okay, so this bottom question then also asks us for the smallest angle in the triangle. So we need to be a bit canny because we don't want to work all 3 angles out just to find out which one is the smallest one. Okay, so the smallest angle will be opposite the smallest side. So that means we're going to need to work out this angle. By all means, have a go and test them all out to find out at home, but this is the one we're going to do. So I'm going to call this one A. So this is our formula. I'm not going to write it out again there. So the cos of A, and this is our little a, is equal to b squared plus c squared minus a squared all over 2 times b times c. So we're going to put that into the calculator. So we've got 13 squared plus 17 squared minus 9 squared. Oops, sorry, forgot to do my fraction thing, didn't I? 13 squared plus 17 squared minus 9 squared, and then go down, and we've got 2 times 13 times 17 equals, turn it into a decimal, so we've got cos of A is 0.85 something or other. Okay, but we want the angle A, so we need to do shift and cos to get cos minus 1, the inverse, press answer and equals, and that tells us that to the nearest whole one our angle is 31 degrees. So that's how we use the cosine rule.